All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are cracking open a massive dark fantasy anomaly to uncover its ultimate survival codex. We're going to descend through the strict, totally unforgiving laws of the Infinite Tavern. And we're going to keep it absolutely focused. We'll be strictly discussing the 10 immutable laws in absolute order, from Rule 1 all the way down to Rule 10. No detours, no distractions.
Here's our index of the infinite. We've got 1. Karma and the grinding. 2. Observers and dimensional bleeding. 3. Usurpation and the paradox. 4. Sacrifice and absolute isolation. And 5. Excision and temporal weight.
Starting off with Section 1, Karma and the grinding.
So we kick things off with Rule 1, Absolute Karma. Now inside this anomaly, the Tavern doesn't actually judge right from wrong. It doesn't care about your morals in that sense. Instead, it literally weighs your karma and triggers a direct physical reaction. The environment itself violently morphs to reflect the soul of whoever is walking its halls. Think about that. Your very thoughts are literally a physical liability in here.
Looking at this illustration of the scales of karma from the Codex, you get a real sense of that stark division. It's literally night and day between the path of someone lawful good and the absolute black blood nightmare of a dark karma run.
You really have to notice the harsh contrast here. If you've got a lawful good soul, the architecture actually bathes you in this warm amber light, which is designed to test your rigid adherence to your vows. But if you're carrying dark karma, the space completely plunges into deep, desaturated void tones. It's because the Tavern recognizes malice as a literal parasite, and it's going to unleash its most aggressive, unyielding executioners to mercifully crush you.
Moving right along to Rule 2, we hit the grinding, and this proves that the Tavern is basically an apex predator. It consumes failure through sheer architectural force. This isn't just a shifting building. We're talking about a massive, violent, physical immune response where the Tavern literally reconfigures its infinite floors. Yeah, so much for standard travel insurance, right?
Check this out. The Codex describes entire floors just dropping away into dimensional voids and rooms sliding completely sideways. It's this deafening convergence of colliding mass that abruptly separates allies with zero warning. You simply cannot map this. Your only hope is to somehow survive the shifts.
That brings us to Section 2, Observers and Dimensional Bleeding.
Okay, Rule 3 is the burden of the observer. Now, you might be thinking, hey, staying out of the fight keeps me safe, right? Well, wrong. True neutrality in the Tavern requires excruciating physical discipline. If you try to map the space without participating in its conflicts, it causes severe dimensional shear. This actually gradually erases your grounded, physical form over time. And here is the crucial point of what happens when you try to stay neutral. Look at the Eurasian cartographers. They literally lose their physical grounding. They transform into these living astral constructs, suspended in a sort of neon magic glow, just to map the shifting geometry. They're reduced to entities that can't even touch the worlds they're mapping anymore.
Which naturally leads us to Rule 4, Dimensional Bleeding. See, because the Tavern acts as the fixed anchoring point for infinite overlapping realities, its physical laws are fundamentally unstable. They constantly, violently rewrite themselves the second a different universe asserts dominance. Just imagine the ground literally changing its underlying physics right beneath your feet.
This archival record perfectly highlights the danger. Just stepping through a threshold can force spontaneous realignment. A warrior's standard iron armor? It might get forcibly reshaped into futuristic plating in an instant. Or magical structures could just be instantly rewritten because you stepped into a different dominant reality. Mind-bending stuff.
All right, diving deeper, here is Section 3, Usurpation and the Paradox.
Rule 5 is the law of usurpation. This one dictates that any class attempting to siphon dimensional energy or twist time is going to face immediate systemic hostility. If you even try to manipulate the Tavern's core forces, the environment violently protects its foundation. We're talking premature biological decay and the permanent stripping of your senses. Just don't do it.
And then we have Rule 6, which reveals the Tavern's absolute hatred for the paradox. The system demands total structural consistency. So if two opposing alignments, let's say a lawful good seer and a chaotic good nature wizard, somehow form an unbreakable bond, that creates a reality-bending contradiction, and the system will relentlessly try to eradicate it.
The Codex here shows us the brutal cost of that kind of contradiction. The system actually deploys entities like the Weaver of Fates to step in and permanently burn out a seer's foresight.
It literally fills their ruined eye sockets with chaotic botanical magic just to forcibly restore that structural consistency. Absolutely terrifying.
Moving down the codex, we reach Section 4, Sacrifice and Absolute Isolation.
Rule 7 dictates that raw strength simply cannot breach the deepest thresholds. It just won't work. Instead, the system requires an equivalent sacrifice. Getting through a major dimensional gate is a deliberate risk that demands exact payment. We're talking voluntary self-mutilation or the permanent deletion of a powerful ally from reality itself.
Then there's Rule 8, the isolation principle. When you cross a major threshold, reality essentially segments. The Tavern categorizes your party as a closed system and traps you in an operational instance. Basically, it forces everyone to interact and resolve their psychological contradictions through conflict, completely isolating you before it allows any external variables inside.
Finally, the bottom of the Codex. Section 5. Excision and Temporal Weight.
Rule 9 triggers systemic excision. Let's say someone embodies absolute evil, and their sole intention is destruction, like a pyromantic tyrant. The Tavern doesn't even bother with standard evaluation. It bypasses all that and deploys adaptive, godlike sentinels. These things are armed with catastrophic wipe mechanics, specifically engineered to instantly and aggressively eradicate the interloper.
And that brings us to the absolute summit, or maybe the absolute rock bottom of these laws. Rule 10, Temporal Weight. This is the ultimate, terrifying reality of the infinite floors. Listen closely. There is no plot armor here. There are 0 rewinds. Every single tactical error, every moment of hesitation, and yes, even your extreme victories, they all demand a permanent price in flesh, blood, or sanity.
Just look at the horrific physical ledger etched into the body here. You're seeing withered limbs that have aged decades in mere moments due to temporal abuse. And that spatial erasure? No medicine or divine intervention is ever going to heal that. The system only balances cost, and it absolutely always collects what is owed.
I'm going to leave you with this final, chilling quote directly from the Codex. To survive the Tavern is to accept a final truth. Nothing returns intact. So, if survival inherently requires an irreversible transformation, are these adventurers actually conquering the infinite floors, or are they just feeding them? Let me know what you think.